You're watching Football Daily, and this is our 11 of players whose careers were wasted. Goalkeeper, Asmir Begovic. Bosnian Begovic may be just 29 years old, but it's hard not to feel that the 6'6" stopper has pissed away years of his career. A Portsmouth youth product, Begovic swapped Pompey for Stoke in 2010 and spent 5 years at the Britannia, attracting interest from Liverpool and Arsenal. But Stoke priced both suitors out of a move, and Begovic ended up moving to Chelsea in 2015 as a replacement for Petr Cech and a backup to Thibaut Courtois. Given that Cech had been unable to oust Courtois from the first team, it was no surprise that Begovic struggled, only receiving a running goal when the Belgian was injured. To make matters worse, after 1 year with the Blues, Begovic was given more competition in the form of Portuguese goalkeeper Eduardo. Now linked to West Ham, surely the big man should jump at the chance to show his class once again. Defender, Gregory van der Wiel. Dutchman van der Wiel burst onto the scene in 2010 as a 22-year-old in the Netherlands World Cup squad. His energy saw him start 5 games out of 7, including the final, and he was then named the Dutch Young Player of the Year. Van der Wiel spent 6 years with Ajax, winning the Eredivisie twice before PSG came calling. In a dominant team, he picked up 12 trophies in just 4 years, but struggled to displace Christophe Jallet in the right-back berth. After the skipper left PSG, centre-back Marquinhos was often preferred on the right, and Van der Wiel eventually joined Fenerbahce in 2016. In Turkey, Van der Wiel has still failed to make an impression, starting around half of Fener's games. It's been a long drop from holding talks with Bayern Munich in 2010. Defender, Winston Bogarde. Dutchman Bogarde won 2 league titles with Barcelona and 2 with Ajax, as well as the Champions League with the Amsterdam club, and he also earned 20 caps for the Netherlands. But after leaving Barca in 2000, he joined Chelsea on a free, in what turned out to be the biggest mistake of his career. Bogarde was signed by Gianluca Vialli, but just 2 weeks after his arrival in London, Claudio Ranieri had taken over, and the centre-back was already surplus to requirements. But rather than seek a new employer, Bogarde was happy to sit on the bench and collected his pay packet for 4 whole years, starting just 4 games in that time. Chelsea tried to embarrass the player out of Stamford Bridge by making him train with the reserves and then the academy, but the big boy never gave in, and Bogarde gave a small insight into his mindset when he published his autobiography that we'll let you look up the title of. Defender, Duncan Edwards. Perhaps the greatest of the Busby Babes, Duncan Edwards won 2 titles in the 50s with Manchester United, and his teammate Bobby Charlton claimed that Edwards was the best player he ever saw, a peer to Pelé, Di Stefano and Maradona. At just 18, Edwards became England's youngest debutant since the war, a record that stood until Michael Owen won his first cap. He could play anywhere on the field, was skillful with both feet, and his enormous strength led the press to call him the Tank. He played just 18 times for his country and under 200 times for United, but in 1958 he was a passenger in the Munich air disaster, which killed 7 of his teammates and 15 others. Edwards was actually pulled from the wreckage, badly injured, but lived just another 15 days, fighting to survive. Sadly, he died on the 21st of February 1958. He was just 21 years of age. Midfield, Gigi Maroney. Fans of Torino know all about tragedy. The club's greatest ever side, the Gran Torino, in the 1940s was destroyed when the whole team died in the 1949 Superga air disaster. And Gigi Maroney is another maroon hero lost too soon. Nicknamed the Butterfly for his agile and graceful dribbling, Meroni moved to Turin from Genoa and became famous for his interest in art and hippie politics. He netted 22 goals in just 103 games, with one magical chip at the San Siro in 1967, bringing Inter Milan's 3-year unbeaten home record to an end. But horribly, after a game between Torino and Sampdoria later that year, Meroni was hit by a car and killed. He was just 24 years old. The driver, Attilio Romero, was a Torino fan and went on to become president of the club in 2000. Midfielder, Yoann Gourcuff. A Rennes product, delicate French playmaker Yoann Gourcuff returned to his boyhood club in 2015 after 9 years away from home. During that time, Gourcuff won the Champions League with Milan, Ligue 1 with Bordeaux, and the league's Player of the Year award in 2009. Blessed with vision and a magical touch, Gourcuff became the most expensive transfer between French clubs in 2010, when Lyon paid €22 million for him, but sadly he never quite became a world beater. Injuries have been Gourcuff's bane, with the midfielder missing 839 days to medical issues since 2009, but perhaps he partially has himself to blame. He once walked straight off the pitch and left Lyon with 10 men when he felt a slight twinge, and even managed to injure his hand high-fiving Alexandre Lacazette. Maybe that's bad luck, or maybe not. Midfielder, Ravel Morrison. Calling Ravel Morrison a bad boy makes him sound cool, but really the Mancunian is a bit of a tit. Still just 23 years old, Morrison was hyped up by no less a judge than Alex Ferguson, who said that the midfielder was the best young player he'd ever seen. Morrison won the FA Youth Cup with Man United in 2011, alongside Jesse Lingard and Paul Pogba, with the papers claiming that Morrison was a bigger talent than his French teammate. But the Englishman ended up leaving for West Ham in 2012 after allegedly assaulting his girlfriend. The Hammers couldn't fix him either though, but somehow Morrison got a huge move to Lazio, where once again he disappointed, playing just 8 times in his first year. Criticised by his coach for laziness and failing to learn Italian, it looks like Ravel may be on his way back home pretty quickly. Midfield, Ricardo Quaresma. Signed by Barcelona at 21, Ricardo Quaresma seemed destined for greatness. That summer, the Blaugrana also signed Ronaldinho and Edgar Davids, and promoted Andres Iniesta from the academy, allowing Quaresma to make just 10 starts and prompting his sale a year after. A tricky winger, Quaresma's repertoire of tricks saw him compared to countryman Cristiano Ronaldo, whilst his outside-of-the-boot goals became his signature. However, he was criticised, often for selfishness and a lack of work rate, even being named the worst signing of the season when he switched to Inter Milan in 2008. Despite his failings, the Portuguese has 5 league titles and a European Championship to his name, but after 2 spells in Turkey and 1 in the UAE, it's hard not to feel that he could have been so much more. Forward, Giovanni Dos Santos. Every young player at La Masia is at some point called the new Messi, but Giovanni Dos Santos actually came through the academy with the little Argentinian and was considered by some to be the equal of his teammates. A creative attacker, the Mexican starred as his country won the Under-17 World Cup in 2005 before leaving for Tottenham, claiming he wasn't getting enough playing time at the Nou Camp. He scored a hat-trick in his final game for the Blaugrana, but paid more attention to partying than football in London, with Harry Redknapp saying if he could pass a nightclub as well as he could pass a ball, he'd be alright. Loan spells led to a permanent move back to Spain, where he put up middling numbers at Mallorca before a decent campaign of 11 goals in 31 games for Villarreal. In 2015 though, he headed back across the Atlantic, this time arriving in LA, where he scored 16 goals in 32 games in 2016. Forward, Darko Pancev. Nicknamed the Cobra, Darko Pancev was one of Europe's deadliest strikers in the late 80s and early 90s. A Yugoslavian and Macedonian international, Pancev spent 3 seasons with Red Star Belgrade, winning the European Cup, coming in second for the Ballon d'Or and scoring 97 goals in 115 games. Italian clubs often shopped at Red Star in those days, and Inter Milan paid just £7 million for Pancev in 1992, making him one of the world's most expensive players. Pancev joined the great Salvatore Schillaci and Mattias Sammer in the new-look Nerazzurri, but didn't fit into style, claiming to have been ostracised by the Italian players. 3 years later, he was on his way, having played only 19 games and scored 3 goals, but he still ended his career with 175 strikes in just 290 games. That's a better rate than Sergio Aguero and Gabriel Batistuta. Forward, Harold Nielsen. Harold Nielsen could well have become Denmark's greatest ever player back in the 1960s. He scored 15 goals in 14 international matches, but was forced to retire from the national team when he joined Bologna in 1960, as professionals were not allowed to play for Denmark at the time. Nielsen won the title with Bologna and twice became top scorer, and was even christened the Cold Dane for his composure in front of goal. But in 1967, like Pancev, he moved to Inter for the world record transfer fee of £300,000. One season brought just 8 appearances and 2 goals, and spells at Napoli and Sampdoria failed to revive his career. Nielsen did make his time in Italy profitable in the end though, as he started a business exporting high-quality Italian leather to Denmark after retirement. So there we have it, but what do you guys at home think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you click here for loads more great content and down there to subscribe. And as always guys, we'll catch you later.